We're going to use Silhouette Studio to make petals and turn those petals into complex flowers. Okay, so when you open Silhouette Studio, it's going to look like this. First thing I would do is page setup will be open, and I would turn on the grid. That just helps us see what we're doing, line things up. In order to make something complex like a layered flower, I'm going to suggest we start first with the drawing tools that are in pretty much any drawing design program. Choose that Draw an Ellipse tool, and then just click anywhere on our mat and pull outward, and we'll get an ellipse. Now, it's easier to work with if we fill it in, so go ahead and go to the top left, and that's going to be your fill. So we'll just give it a nice bright color. Alright. So that really looks like a petal already. So next we can right click on it and choose duplicate, or even easier, just hit Control D to duplicate. And then we'll pull the second one down underneath this one and try to line it up. You can see there's a little blue line that shows up right there, boop, showing that they're snapping into place in line together. Just to be totally sure, you can always go to the Align tool on the top and choose Align Vertically, or as they say, Align Center, right there. Now I'm going to take the bottom petal and I'm going to use my arrows to move it up. If you hold Shift and use your arrows, it'll go faster. So there. Now that they're overlapping, we can combine them to be one shape. So this will be the foundation of our flower. We're going to use a tool all the way over on the right hand side called Modify. So here there's a little pop-up that says Open the Modify panel. Open that. In other software, it's often called Pathfinder tool, and we're going to use Weld or Union in other programs. So hit Weld, and now we have one shape. Yay! So now we can do the real magic. There's something special in Silhouette that works really well for this. On top of the Modify panel, over on the right, it says Open the Replicate panel. And actually looks like a flower right there. So on the bottom of this, you can see Rotate Copies. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the number of copies I want. Maybe I'm like, nah, it looks too much like a chrysanthemum. You can always hit Undo or just Control Z, even easier. And try less. Okay, yeah, I like this. Now you need to weld all of these. So you can hold Shift and click each petal. You'd want to really make sure that there's a little gray rectangle around every petal so you know they're all selected. And then you can go back to Modify and weld them. Or there's a shortcut on the top toolbar, because that union, that weld, is the most popular of the Modify panel. So we're going to weld. And we have our first flower. That's that. It's beautiful. So let's have a little bit more fun. I'm going to pull this flower out of the spotlight. And I'm going to start with a new ellipse. Just choose the ellipse and then click and drag. And let's fill them in with another fun color. Alright. Now we're going to go down under the Select tool on the left to the Edit Points tool. And once you click Edit Points, little points are going to show up on here. And each point has handles, so you can move the points, you can move the handles. Right now they're all going to move in a curved way because they're part of an ellipse, but I'm going to undo that, or Control Z, and instead click on this top point and make that a corner. You can either right click and choose corner instead of smooth. We'll choose corner. Or you can choose it up here on the top where you have options while you're in edit point mode here. But the beauty of this is it'll allow you to move one handle at a time. And you want this to look pretty symmetrical, I guess, so I'm actually going to take away the fill for a second. So click off, and click back on to just do regular select. So there's your regular select, and I'm going to take the fill away. And I might as well zoom in a bit. So zooming in, you can hit this little magnifying glass icon, zoom in, or even hold Control and do plus on your keyboard, minus to zoom back out. But then you do have to use the scroll wheel or this on the bottom to get things back to where you want them to be. So even better is this option right here. That combines that magnifying or zoom function with your mouse or your cursor. So it says drag over a shape. So clicking that, your cursor becomes a little magnifying glass, and you can draw an invisible box around the part that you're trying to work on right now. So now we can see this tip, and we can see all the grid lines that are going to help us out. I'm going to line my flower up with one of these lines. Okay. Go back to Edit Point, click on that top point, and I'm going to make sure that these are both in the same spot on each side. So you can see I pulled those a ½ inch away from the middle, right there, so they'll be symmetrical. Beautiful. Now we can zoom back out, Control minus or the minus magnifying glass tool. There he is. Let's color him back in. Now that looks more like a petal, I would say. So that's a good start for a new flower. We're going to do the same thing we did last time now. We're just going to do Control D to duplicate, and we're going to flip it though, because now if we just pulled it underneath, that won't work. We need this to be flipped. There's a lot of ways you could do that. You could go up to Object and go to Rotate. Make sure you click on Rotate, and then you could do 180. You could also go to Object and Mirror and flip vertically. The easiest way, I'm just going to delete this one and click back on the original, is to go back into our Replicate panel on the far right and Replicate Mirror. So under Replicate, you can mirror a thing or you can rotate a thing, and we're going to do both. So first we're going to mirror it by flipping it down. Aha! And then again, they're not really touching, so I'm going to move it just a bit up with my arrow keys. Shift and click on both. Go ahead and weld them. And now we can do our rotate copies. Haha! Gorgeous! Again, you can hold Shift and click each petal, or you could just take your cursor and draw an invisible box. It'll show up as a dotted line, and just make sure it touches every petal and you'll be fine. Grab everything. I would move it around to make sure you really grabbed all the petals. Perfect. And now we can weld. Ah, so cool.